Financial Capability Month. April is Financial Capability Month, and CFPB defines financial capability as the combination of the knowledge and skills needed to make sound financial decisions, along with access to the products and services that enable families to manage their resources well. And so, as they would put it, especially when money is tight, if you're working to boost the financial capability of the clients you serve, you probably find yourself asking, how do I teach my clients to budget so that they can be prepared for an emergency? Or how can I help my clients access their credit score and understand the decisions they can make to boost that score? Hopefully, as a result of participating in today's presentation, as well as the other future presentations that we will offer through the mediums that were mentioned, we hope that your agency, that you would be more empowered to meet the needs of your customers more effectively when it comes to this notion of financial capability. With this in mind, I would like for us to just take a moment to focus on the community action promise that certainly grounds our work as a network. We are the anti-poverty people. Anti-poverty work rests at the heart of what we do and who we are. And the promise says, community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we're dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. So once again, it is my pleasure to introduce our partners at CFPB, our colleague, Ariel Sangar-Berkman, who will be leading today's presentation. At this time, I'm happy to pass the baton over to Ariel. Thank you very much for joining us, and most of all, to CFPB. We thank you so much for the partnership. Ariel?
Hi, Tiffany. Thank you for such a wonderful intro and for grounding everyone in the webinar about how important this work is and how important the work that you all are doing. So I just wanted to welcome everyone again to Tools and Strategies for Helping Clients Build Financial Capability. As Tiffany said, my name is Ariel Sankar-Bergman, and I'm a program manager on the Savings and Financial Capability team at CFPB. In this role, I work to advance and scale strategies to help low-income adults and children achieve financial security. One of the main things that I do in my job is I work providing intensive technical assistance to community-based organizations that are working to integrate financial capability services into the services that they offer. So, for example, I might work with a domestic violence shelter that realizes that credit is a major barrier to their clients achieving financial stability and figure out how to integrate credit building services into the work that they're already doing. I'm joined on today's webinar by 3 people from local organizations that are working to help low-income people in their communities build financial capability. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce you to everyone. The first person is Charlotte Hickson, who has worked at the Worcester Community Action Council for 11 years, serving in program director and management roles, as well as working directly with at-risk youth. Charlotte is currently the director of the Job and Education Center and the Asset Development Programs and a member of the agency's senior management team. Kim Snow works for Neighbor Impact, and Kim has 23 years of experience as an early childhood educator, working with children and families, and with 17 of those years specific to doing Head Start work in Central Oregon. Kim has extensive background with hands-on teaching experience and success in developing parent and community partnerships, training coordination, and oversight of the education context area. Finally, we have Lynn McConnell, who also works at Neighbor Impact. She is their Deputy Director of Housing and Assets in Bend, Oregon. Lynn holds a BA in Sociology from the University of Oregon and a JD from Lewis and Clark. In addition to the amazing work that she's doing at Neighbor Impact, Lynn also has an extensive volunteer history and is currently serving on the Residential Advisory Committee to the Bend Urban Growth Boundary Expansion and on the Central Oregon City Club Programs Committee, among many others. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank all of our speakers for making the time to join us today. It's so helpful to hear from people who are in the field and who are doing this work. I think you guys are really the experts, and I'm so glad that you were able to join us for today's webinar. So we just, to help make sure that you get the most out of this webinar, we've put together a few keys to success. So always make sure to join from a quiet space, grab a coffee, maybe a little snack, settle in, respond to the poll questions and discussion questions. Write down your questions as they come up. We will have time for Q&A, both for myself and for the speakers, so make sure to write down those questions as you think of them. And as we're doing this webinar, really think about how you could apply what you're learning to your own work and to your own clients. We've designed this webinar to be interactive and to give you a chance to share your ideas and think about how you can use this information and set of resources in your own work. By the end of this webinar, you'll have identified which dimensions of financial capability are most pressing for your clients. You'll have brainstormed outcomes that would show improvement in the financial lives of your clients. You'll have decided how financial capability services can be integrated into a program workflow. You'll have asked questions of other CAP agencies integrating financial capability services into their work, and you'll have selected which sections of the guide you're most interested in using and outlined your next steps for using the guide in your work. So before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit about CFPB and OCS, who are two of the hosts for today's webinar. CFPB is a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. Our mission is to make it possible for millions of people to achieve financial security and contribute to an opportunity economy. To achieve this, we scale practical solutions that empower low and moderate income people to build wealth. We drive responsive policy changes at all levels of government, and we support community leaders across the country to advance economic opportunity for all. We're a national intermediary, so we don't actually work directly with clients, but we really work to support the organization, agencies, and advocates that are working to advance programs or policies that help families achieve financial security. So even though we don't directly serve clients, we're usually working really closely with the organizations that are serving clients. We worked with the Office of Community Service, or OCS, to develop this webinar and many of the resources that we'll be sharing with you today. For those of you who aren't familiar with OCS, it's a division of the Administration of Children and Families within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. OCS partners with states, communities, and agencies to reduce the causes of poverty, increase opportunity and economic security of individuals and families, and revitalize communities. OCS administers 6 local social service and community development programs, including the Assets for Independence, Community Economic Development, Community Services Block Grant, Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, Rural Community Development, and the Social Services Block Grant. So Tiffany touched a bit on our definition of financial capability, but I just wanted to go through that and explain a bit more about what we mean when we say financial capability. So we really think of financial capability as having 3 components: knowledge, skills, and access to resources. Many organizations recognize the importance of knowledge and may provide financial education to their clients. But in order for clients to turn that knowledge into action, they need financial skills and access to financial services, products, and other resources that really allow them to engage in the financial marketplace. Financial capability is a critical step towards financial security, and many people, regardless of socioeconomic background, may lack one or more factors in this financial capability equation. So I just wanted to take a moment now and hear from the people who are on this webinar. If you'd like to take 30 seconds and just think about one phrase or word that describes the financial challenges of the people that you serve at your organization or your own financial challenges that you may be experiencing. If you can just submit those through the chat box, I'll try to capture as many of them on the screen as I can. So don't be shy, just feel free to submit anything that you think of when it comes to your clients' financial lives.
Hey Ariel, it looks like we're actually getting a few in the Q&A box, so if it's okay with you, I can go ahead and read aloud.
Yeah. I have only gotten one so far, so please read aloud. That would be great.
So we have inability to meet basic needs, very low income, lack of a job or work, stable shelter and transportation, high housing costs, addictions limiting their time frame.
Okay.
Some others are the amount of time a client has to invest in trying to secure their resources or reinstate them.
Okay. These are really great. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I want to make sure that we have time to keep moving, so I'm going to move on from those, but those were really wonderful. I think, I know this type is in bright blue, so I'm not sure how well people can read it, but I think you really get a sense from this that the clients you're serving have really complicated lives and they're facing significant barriers, and that's part of the reason it's so important to think about services that can help address these really complex needs. So this next slide shows a broad overview of the process for first understanding and then addressing the financial needs that you all just pointed out really effectively. So the first step to actually identifying the financial needs of your clients. What we've found here at CFED in working with organizations across the country is that organizations often know a lot about maybe one or two aspects of their clients' financial lives, but we don't always have the full picture. So we really encourage groups to start by assessing the needs of their clients. Then we encourage these organizations to brainstorm outcomes that will demonstrate an improvement in those needs and select what we call financial capability services. And these services really act to bridge the gap from where clients are now to where they want to be. Once we know that, organizations can decide on who is best positioned to deliver financial capability services to clients based on their capacity, accessibility, and the fit. And then CAP agencies and their partners can develop an implementation plan to connect clients to those services, and they can work throughout this process to build support from key stakeholders to make sure that they're on board with this plan. So I want to take a moment now and introduce Building Financial Capability, a planning guide for integrated services. This is a comprehensive guide that we developed with the Office of Community Services. It's designed to walk community-based organizations through the process of selecting financial capability services for clients, identifying who can provide those services, and developing an implementation plan. So if we all think back to the slide that we just had up that outlined those different steps, this guide is full of tools and resources that will help you walk through all of the steps that we just talked about on the last slide. So what is the guide? The guide is an interactive resource that's available online at no cost. It includes a set of 13 tools. I'll be introducing all of them on today's call, and they've been tested and used by organizations around the country on the ground and working with their clients. The guide is really an organizational level resource. It's not for staff or clients. It's specifically written for directors and managers that lead strategic planning and have an in-depth understanding of programs. We encourage organizations who are using the guide to develop a planning team that engages stakeholders at all levels of an organization in collecting information and making decisions about how financial capability services will be integrated into existing programs for clients. The heart of the guide is these 4 sections and the 13 tools that you see on your screen right now. The guide also contains resources at the beginning that you should read before you get started. And it contains resources at the end that you can reference as you use the guide, including 4 appendices and a one-stop tool shop that has links to all of the blank tools. You don't need to do all the tools or do them in order. You can pick and choose based on your organization's own needs. It's sort of like a pick your own adventure for program planning. The guide is an interactive PDF resource to help you easily navigate between different parts of the guide. So if I click on section 1 here on the navigation bar, which is the part that's highlighted, I will jump to the introductory page of section 1. And the 3 tools in this section will appear on the navigation bar on the right. So if I click on tool 1 in the navigation bar, I will jump to the first page of Tool 1, which contains instructions and links to download different versions of the guide. All 13 planning tools are available in MS Word and PDF format, so you can fill them out yourself. So before we take a closer look at each section of the guide, are there any questions that people have so far that they'd like to submit through the chat box? And I can answer those before we dive in. So we just want to take 30 seconds for folks to send in questions that they might have. Okay, if there are no questions so far, I'll just jump into it, but if you think of ones, write them down and submit them, and those, they can be passed on to me so I can answer them when we have our next break. So let's take a closer look at section 1 of the guide, which is called Envisioning Your Client's Financial Capability and how you can use it at your organization. Section 1 has 3 tools. If you complete all 3 tools in section 1, you'll end up with a theory of change that depicts financial capability services you need to integrate and why. Financial lives are very complicated, as we saw when we were doing that brainstorming session before. The 3 tools in section 1 address the 6 dimensions of financial capability to make sure that we get a complete picture of clients' financial lives. I just want to take a moment now and go through those dimensions and talk about how we define them at CFPB. So when we talk about money management, we're really looking at the incomes and expenses that comprise a client's household budget and how they're managing that cash flow. Income and support. So those are things like public benefits such as TANF, SNAP, food stamps, and tax credits such as the earned income tax credit that clients receive or could receive. Under credit and debt, that's really looking at clients' ability to borrow money and the amount of money owed, such as mortgages, student loans, credit cards, payday loans, or rent-to-own services. Financial capability products and services is looking at whether and how clients use transactional accounts, savings accounts, check cashing services, rent-to-own services, car loans, and more. Savings and investments. So this is looking at the money that clients have set aside for future and assets they own, such as a home or a small business, maybe their post-secondary education. Finally, we have clients' knowledge about and usage of predatory services, also looking at insurance products, whether they have medical insurance, renter's insurance. If they don't have it, could they have it? It's important to also realize that there is overlap between these topics, such as financial products and services and credit or debt. So moving on to the next section. So Tool 1 helps you assess how your client's current financial capability is through a series of questions that we've designed to look at each dimension of financial capability to help you gain a deeper understanding of the multiple dimensions of how your clients are managing their finances now. So the questions are organized into the 6 categories I just described, and they could include things like what are the most common expenses that clients have and how do they mention them. It could also be things like what do clients' savings habits look like. Gathering this client data is a critical first step because financial capability is not a one-size-fits-all. If services are going to be effective, they have to be tailored to the specific needs of specific clients. So the more you know about your client's financial capability at the starting point, the better. Solid data means you'll make better decisions, and better decisions should lead to better results. Tool 1 can be time-consuming, but it's worth it. So someone just asked a question that I just wanted to respond to quickly, and they were asking if a CAP were to go through this planning guide in their totality, what would the ideal planning group size be, and what's an ideal timeline for implementation? Just to respond to that quickly, I would say we've seen the size of the planning groups vary. I think it is really important, though, to have at least one person who has decision-making authority on that group, and to also sort of have people who are high up in the programs that will be affected. So you want to make sure that you have people whose work is going to be effective participating in that planning, and that you're not having people who are too low down that once you come up with a plan, they can't make a decision. I think in general, what we've seen from groups using the guide is that it can take up to a year for them to do the full implementation process, but that also depends somewhat on how ambitious the project they're doing is and how much change is required of that project. So I hope that answered that question, and if it didn't, feel free to send me another message or send a message at the next Q&A break. So I was curious to hear from you all. What dimensions of financial capability do you think your clients are struggling with the most? And Natalie, if you could launch the poll now, I believe you all will have 30 seconds to respond to that poll. So are we able to see the response from the poll, Natalie? Okay, great. Thank you all for responding. So it looks like the two big ones that people are seeing are income supports and credit and debt, and that those are some of the things that clients are really struggling with, as well as money management. I think the credit and debt is something that we see is pretty common that people struggle with. I think it's an important one to address because poor credit has so many impacts on people's lives, whether that means that they're unable to access housing or unable to get a job because of a poor credit score. So those, I think, are in line with what we see when organizations start thinking about how to address these issues. So moving on to Tool 2. Tool 2 is designed to help you sketch out what improved financial capability would look like for your clients, or what success would look like in terms of financial capability outcomes. The outcomes you select should be meaningful for clients, which means they should respond to the priority financial issues they face, the priority financial issues that you would identify in Tool 1. Sample outcomes include that clients know how to access and read their credit reports, they're able to set savings goals, and clients file their taxes for free. Changes in clients' financial capability can be broken into a number of categories. These categories include things like changes in financial knowledge, attitudes, skills, behavior, and life conditions. When selecting outcomes, it's important to note which could be expected to happen in the short term versus the long term. Also, it's generally important to note that behavior changes don't usually happen unless participants have sufficient knowledge, attitudes, and skills to manage their finances more effectively. Appendix C of the guide contains a list of over 100 financial capability outcomes organized by the 6 different dimensions of financial capability that we've been looking at and separated into short-term, medium-term, and long-term outcomes. So I just wanted to take 30 seconds, and if you all wouldn't mind sharing what improved financial capability would look like for your clients. And if you all want to read out those responses, if they're going through the Q&A box, I can capture them on the screen here. So what would improved financial capability outcomes look like for your clients? And also feel free to send me a chat as well.
So we have one here, improvements of job security.
Improve job security.
Got another one, a feeling of financial wellness and stability, ability to meet basic needs.
Yeah, so meeting basic needs, hold on.
Sure.
Financially secure. I apologize that the spacing is a bit off on this. I just got a message that said clients are confident in their ability to manage money.
Another one that I got is monthly savings.
That's a good one.
Another I got in reducing utilities or credit card debt and increasing the amount of discretionary income at the end of the month.
Those are great. Okay, well, thank you guys for sharing. I think those are really wonderful outcomes that would probably make a really big difference for all of our clients. So, tool 3 is where you really work to fill in that missing piece, the services that will meet your clients where they are now and help them reach their target outcome. So I really think of services as being sort of that bridge between where clients are now and where they want to be. In the guide, we reference 10 different types of financial capability services we've seen organizations use across the country. Detailed descriptions of each of these services are available in Appendix A of the guide, including what the service is, why it's important, and how to implement it. As the final step in completing your theory of change, you'll write a brief narrative summary, which will become a powerful statement about what you intend to do and why. Throughout the guide, we've completed versions of all of the tools based on a fictional agency, which we've named HAPE Community Action Agency, and we've looked at how they might have completed the tools from the guide. While this example is fictional, it's based on the work that we've done with actual organizations. So let's look at how HAPE completed the 3 tools from Section 1 of the guide to create a theory of change for their financial capability integration project. In this example, HAPE decided to focus their integration efforts on their Head Start program. Sorry, there's a little delay in me advancing it. I apologize. There's the theory of change. Sorry that you all weren't able to see that. So in this one, they used Tool 1 to learn more about their Head Start parents' current financial capability by analyzing client data and conducting client interviews. They learned from this process that Head Start parents wanted to pay off their debt, that they were interested in improving their credit scores, and that they wanted to be able to find good jobs in housing and wanted to access their tax credits so they could increase their income. Once HAPE had a better understanding of what their clients' needs were, they used Tool 2 to develop a list of outcomes for Head Start parents. These outcomes were focused on things like parents know how to access, read, and understand their credit report, they're confident that they can reduce their debt, and they know how to improve their credit scores. Then HAPE used the information they gathered about clients in Tools 1 and the outcomes that they listed in Tools 2 to come up to determine which services will meet clients where they are now and help them achieve their outcomes. Staff decided that credit counseling and free tax preparation services were the best services for clients. It's important to note that if you decide to integrate financial capability services into multiple programs, we recommend that you complete all of these tools for each of them. For example, HAPE Community Action, our fictional agency, completed Tools 1, 2, and 3 for a Head Start program, and then also for a youth supportive housing program, which we'll be looking at later in the presentation. Now we're going to turn to Charlotte to learn more about the work that Worcester Community Action has been doing to help clients build financial capability. I prepared a few questions for Charlotte, but please submit the questions you have for her via the chat function, and I'll be sure to ask those as well. So thank you so much for joining us today, Charlotte. So I just wanted to start out and hear a little bit about what your role looks like at WCAC.
Sure. Well, I'm the director of our Job and Education Center and Asset Development Programs. So I oversee about 15 different programs under the umbrella of our Job and Education Center, and these include youth and adult workforce development, career pathway programming, case management, wraparounds and life skills, and financial literacy and asset development.
Great. And can you, oops, sorry. Keeps just getting a little, can you tell us about the services that you all offer at your organization?
Sure. So WCAC is the Community Action Agency for the City of Worcester and towns south of Worcester, located in central Massachusetts. We're best known for our fuel assistance and weatherization programs, but we do have a total of about 20 programs. Work readiness for youth and adults. HISET, we're a VITA tax site for free tax preparation, financial literacy services. We do SNAP applications, and then we have a large Head Start and early Head Start program, as well as a program for teen parents called the Healthy Families.
Great. Thank you for giving us that overview. So I know that you have gone through this integration effort already. So thinking about sort of that integration project, can you tell me which clients you decided to focus on, and let me know a little bit about what their financial needs were?
So we decided to work with 3 programs, and one was Head Start, but specifically we narrowed it to the parents who participate in Head Start Policy Council. And then we chose to work with our teen parents in the Healthy Families program. And the third program is called the Massachusetts Secure Jobs Program, and it's homeless families that have recently been, their housing has been stabilized, and our job is to get them into jobs. And the needs, after using the guide and the tools, we were able to identify that Head Start parents really wanted workshops, but they wanted them to meet their specific needs. They wanted to be surveyed first to find out what their needs were and then have the workshops tailored to them. Free income tax preparation and access to credits, tax credits, and very basic budgeting and saving strategies.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So how exactly has your organization integrated financial capability services?
Okay. I think our theme is removing barriers and increasing access to services. So for our Head Start Policy Council parents, we partnered with a local credit union to provide the workshops, and a couple of the workshops have included a nutrition component, which sounded a little strange at first, but it really turned out to be a good combination. It was a tangible example for budgeting that families could use. And the key here is that we provided childcare on site. These are working families, so it was in the evenings, but we had dinner for children and the parents, and we provided transportation. Then for our teen parents in our Healthy Families program, we decided to bring our VITA services to the program. So our VITA site is located downtown Worcester, and this program is about 45 minutes outside of Worcester. It's hard for the parents to come here, so we brought the program to them. And it was a great success. We provided cab vouchers so that they could get to the program, childcare again, their case managers were on site, the program provided incentives, and it was in a comfortable place, not intimidating. The clients knew how to get there. It was at the program's offices where the clients are used to going. So that was successful. And then our homeless families, they're just getting into jobs, so they finally have an income to work with. So they need to build basic household budgets. So what we found here is that we piloted some financial wellness workshops. Again, we offered lunch. We provided it during a time that worked for the families, which in this case is a lot of single moms, so they needed to do this during the day before their kids are getting home from school. We provided bus passes. They could bring their younger children with. And we also found that a financial coaching model worked well here because the basic budgeting concepts were kind of a natural conversation while case managers were talking with clients about employment-related goals.
Thank you for sharing that. I love your all's emphasis on removing barriers and really just trying to make those services as accessible and as easy to get to as possible for clients and just making it so easy for them to engage in it. I think that's really important and exciting to see you all doing. So I wanted to hear a little bit about what you would say are some of the challenges and what have been some of the benefits of integrating financial capability services.
Sure. So I think one of our challenges was recruiting and hiring experienced staff. We were less interested in a traditional education model, more interested in the behavior change piece, and finding people who were experienced in that was a challenge. Also, our capacity, like our time capacity for studying how all the services in the agency function and then bringing our senior level staff together so that we could really design a full integration program. We're still working on that. And the benefits, lots of benefits, again, removing barriers, increasing access to services. This gave us a much better understanding of what our client needs are. We found that we didn't have a lot of documentation for clients' financial needs. A lot of it was anecdotal, but this has helped. Our case managers, we have a better connection to more tools and strategies. And I think integrating financial capability services or programs into existing services and programs really made sense because for case managers, it builds on that rapport that's already present with the client rather than sending a client workshop with someone they're not familiar with.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important point. So jumping back to the guide that we've been talking about, can you just share a little bit about how you use the tools or what you found helpful from using them?
Sure. I have to admit the guide was a bit daunting at first. It has a lot of pages, and we had to look at our but what we found is that it's been very helpful, and the tools are all broken down so nicely into manageable pieces. Particularly the first couple of tools really helped us look at our client needs, and we really found the logic model helpful. And that helped us with a path for program design and identifying the gaps. And it also, I think, just as part of this learning partnership, we've been connected to a lot more trainings for our staff.
Okay.
Very good experience.
Oh, good. Okay, well, that's great to hear. I'm glad the tools were useful. So I just want to take a couple moments and see, does anyone have any questions for Charla about the work that they've done? And they can submit those through the chat box to me or send them to Natalie, and I will pass them on to Charla. But we have a couple minutes to ask questions if folks have them. So one question I had that I was wondering if you could touch on is, how did you sort of vet and develop a partnership with the credit union that you worked with?
It's a new partnership. I believe it's located in one of the smaller towns outside of Worcester. So there weren't, there's just a few credit unions there. So I think that helped. And they did have they were already involved somewhat and had some curriculum. So it was tailoring it to what we felt like what the needs of our clients were. And it's ongoing, so I'm still looking forward to finding out, getting feedback from clients.
Great.
Sorry, was that? Yep.
Oh, go ahead. We actually got a couple of other questions if we still have time.
Yeah, I think we probably have time for at least one more, and then we can save the rest of the Q&A at the end, if that's okay. But yeah, let's definitely ask one more question.
Not a problem. All right, so the first one that came in is, what was the most difficult part of implementing this program into your already existing program?
That's a great question. Well, I keep saying capacity, and I think that's important. We're really busy. We have so many clients, and taking the time to step back and kind of study this was one hurdle. But I think it's really, I think it was worth it. I think this is probably a typical answer, but funding, for us to offer our VITA services outside of the city of Worcester. We knew that would take some funding, and so we had to spend time there to find that.
And let's do one more question, and I'm sure we can make time for it. So let's just do one more question to Charla.
Sure. So about how many families have participated in your work thus far?
Oh, well, let's see. With our teen parents, I want to say we had about 20 who had their taxes prepared. And the wonderful part about that is a lot of them work part-time, so they were eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit, and were receiving, approximately an average of like $5,000 in tax returns. We were very happy for them. And we have about 30 clients that are homeless that we're working to get into jobs.
Great. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next section, but if you can save those, the other questions that came through, we'll have a bunch of time for questions at the end, so we'll make sure to pass those along. So now we're going to talk about section 2 of the guide, which is called Building the Team. So in section 1 of the guide, you identified which services you wanted to integrate into your program to increase clients' financial capability. The title of section 2's capstone tool, Deciding Who Will Deliver Services, summarizes what the 4 tools in this section help you do. Collectively, the tools help you understand the available resources, both in-house and external, that will allow you to deliver the services you identified in section 1. Before we developed the guide, we reviewed integration efforts from around the country and identified 3 approaches: refer, partner, and do-it-yourself, that organizations have used to integrate financial capability services into existing programs. The do-it-yourself approach involves your own in-house staff delivering financial capability services. Under the partnership approach, you team up with another organization to deliver services jointly in one location. And finally, under the referral approach, you send clients to another organization with specialized expertise. All 3 integration approaches have advantages and challenges. You can use the tools in the guide to think through which approach makes the most sense based on your client's need and available resources. Depending on what you learn here in section 2, you might decide that the best way to provide services the service or services that you selected in section 1 will be to provide those services in-house, or refer your clients elsewhere, or partner with another organization to bring those services on-site. If you're offering more than one service, chances are you'll use a combination of these approaches. You can use Tool 4 in the guide to determine whether you have enough leadership support, funding, and staff capacity to deliver the planned service. Tool 4 has a set of questions to help you rate and describe your capacity in each area. You may need input from a variety of staff members, especially senior leaders, to answer all the questions about your organization's in-house capacity. So I wanted to hear from you all. What are some of the financial capability services that you're already providing in-house? And Natalie, if you could read those to me as they come in, or people can chat me directly, that would be great. We'll just take about 30 seconds for this. So what are some of the services you all are already doing?
So one I see that just came in is budget planning.
It's a great one.
Financial literacy classes and one-on-one coaching.
Okay.
Another here is employment support.
Okay. So the person who's doing employment support, we will have a great resource to share with you at the end. Anything else that people are doing already?
The last one I see here is representative payee services.
Okay.
And also pre-tax prep is another one that just came up.
Great. I'm just going to put that as beta. Great. Well, thank you all for sharing this. It looks like you're already doing some fabulous work. And I'm a big fan of financial coaching personally, so I'm so excited to see that an organization is already doing that. Congratulations. I know that's a very resource-intensive service to offer. So tool 5 is an inventory, helps you do an inventory of community service providers. It helps you to capture, in the tool, you capture the basics, so the organization's name, the contact info, and any past or current work that you've done with the organization. To make sure that your list of service providers is complete, it's a good idea to check out resources such as the Assets and Opportunity Network, which is a group of advocates, practitioners, and policymakers from around the country that are working to advance asset building strategies in their community. If you're not already connected to the network, you can visit the website to find out who your state and local leads are. And these leads should be able to sort of help you figure out what are some of the other organizations in your community that might be providing these services. And if you just go to that link on the website, you'll be able to access it. Another good resource to check out is United Way 211. This was spearheaded by United Way Worldwide, and 211 is a telephone hotline staffed by community resource experts, and they can connect you to local health and human services resources. Finally, Bank On programs are another great resource to check out. Bank On programs are public-private partnerships, and they work in local communities to provide safe and affordable bank accounts to low-income and or underbanked people. They can be a great person to provide services to your client or just help you connect to other service providers. So I just wanted to hear a little bit again from participants. So which are some of the organizations in your community that are currently providing financial capability services? Just take about 30 seconds to do this. Does anyone want to share organizations in their community that are already providing those services? And feel free to send the chat to me or to Natalie.
So I see one that says Community Action.
That's a great one. Anything else?
Catholic Charity.
Oh, that's
Catholic
another
Charity.
good one.
There's another one, CHIP.
CHIP, okay.
And also TVCCA.
TVCCA, great. I'm not sure what TVCCA is. CHIP, I'm wondering if that's the Children's Health Program, but those are some great examples, so thank you all for sharing. So Tool 6 is an assessment of communities. It's designed to help you assess those community service providers. Tool 6 addresses 3 related topics. First, client fit. So are your clients eligible for the services? Are the services tailored for your client? Second is client access, so does the location, time, and cost of those services work for your clients? And third is capacity. Do other organizations have the staff time and resources to serve additional clients? You can address these issues if you have really good in-depth knowledge of your client's needs, which you'll find out through Tool 1. Oh, sorry, those just popped up on the screen. So finally, Tool 7 is the last tool. So by the time you've completed Tools 4, 5, and 6, you should have a pretty full picture of who are the people in your community that are providing services and how well do those services fit with clients' needs. And in the capstone tool, you will decide who will be delivering those services. So we're just going to look at the example of HAPE Community Action again. So thinking about their Head Start parents, they decided that for credit counseling, they wanted to refer to an agency called Credit Counseling Services of the Northwest region, but they wanted to partner and bring free tax preparation on site so that their parents didn't have to go anywhere to access those. And note, we have DIY with existing capacity, meaning your staff is already ready to do it, or DIY and build capacity, meaning that you may want to provide that service on site, but your staff is going to need some additional help for it to do it. So Section 3 is called Moving to Action, and this is where you'll develop a detailed implementation plan. So in Section 1, you decided who would deliver the services, which services you wanted to provide. In Section 2, you decided who will deliver them, and here you'll decide how you will actually deliver those services. So Tool 8 describes the current workflow of the program that you want to integrate financial capability services into. And for each of those programs' major milestones, including intake, main service activities, and exit, you document what clients are doing, including whether financial topics are already being discussed. So I just wanted to go through each of those sections. So outreach, is identifying ways that clients learn about this service and get connected to it. In intake and registration, you should describe who is doing this, what information is being collected. The start of services, we should describe sort of what that first service delivery engagement looks like. Under main service activities, you want to provide a brief description of the services by type, so whether the services are one-on-one, whether it's a group, how frequently people are meeting, what's the duration of client participation, and which staff are meeting with which clients. Under program exit, you want to describe when the exit occurs and what happens at that time. And under follow-up, you should list, are there any follow-up activities, who performs them, and at what point do those follow-up activities take place. So I wanted to just look at a fictional example really quickly for an affordable housing provider. So this housing provider wants to integrate a home ownership IDA program into their housing program. So they've mapped out their current program workflow, and a simplified version of it is up on the screen now. So residents are first referred to the housing agency, then they go through the intake process. After they move in, they'll have their first meeting with the case manager. They'll have an opportunity to participate in ongoing workshops on various topics, as well as ongoing meetings with their case manager. They will exit the program when they move to unsubsidized housing. So thinking about that IDA program, when do you think that program should first be introduced? And if we could just launch the poll for that now and just take 30 seconds to try and think about when that program should first be introduced.
Okay, the poll is now closed. We'll give it just a few seconds to process the data.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, okay, these are some really great responses. So there actually is no perfect right or wrong answer for this poll, but when we were thinking about it, we decided that they should introduce the IDA program at intake, and this way residents would hear about that program early on. They could start thinking about it sort of first thing, whether they might be interested in doing it. But there is actually not a right or wrong answer with these. The important thing is just to think about different points that when that could happen. So thinking about sort of moving through this workflow, when in the process would you determine whether residents are eligible for the IDA program and help them open their account? So could you just launch the next poll? So this is about determining eligibility and helping them open that first account.
All right, the poll is now closed. We'll need about 15 seconds for it to load.
Great. Okay, so it looks like a lot of people said in that first meeting with their case manager, and that is actually the answer that we came up with as well. We felt like people should be introduced and screened for this program right away, and that would just give them as much time to save as possible. So the next three tools, tools 9, 10, and 11, all do essentially the same job. They're helping you plan for implementation. So which one you use depends on which of the three integration approaches, refer, partner, or do it yourself, that you chose back in section 2. If you choose to refer, you'll be using tool 9. If you choose partner, you'll use tool 10. And if you choose DIY, you'll be using tool 11. So let's look at tool 9. You'll need information from the referral organization to map out your referral plan. You'll already have collected some of this information using tool 6. But you'll use the program workflow you created in tool 8 to decide when you will make each referral. The questions at the end of tool 9 help you identify the best referral points based on clients' readiness and logistical considerations. You should share your completed tool 9 with your own team and with staff from the referral organization to make sure that everyone understands the process. Tool 10 is for the partner approach, what tool 9 is for the refer approach. It provides 11 questions to help your organization and your partners decide how to work together. The questions are organized into 3 categories: outcomes, partnership goals, and resources to run the partnership, and management and operational procedures for the partnership. Like the referral plan, Tool 10 uses the workflow you created in Tool 8 to decide where to integrate services, again, with a set of questions to help you guide those decisions. You would use Tool 11 if you selected the DIY approach to providing financial capability services. It identifies what is needed to provide services in-house, what additional capacity or resources you might need, and how you'll get those. Like the referral and partnership plan, Tool 11 includes questions to help you determine how financial capability services will be incorporated into the existing workflow. Finally, Tool 12 is the logic model, and this brings together your entire financial capability service integration plan in one place. It outlines how financial capability services will be provided and how you anticipate this translating into the intended outcomes. Organizations use different types of logic models. So if you use a different type of logic model for your work, you don't need to use this one. You can use you can also modify this logic model just to suit it to sort of whatever your organizational needs are. We've got 6 columns that depict the different components of the logic models, looking at inputs, activities, outputs, and then looking at outcomes that are both short-term, medium, and long-term. But if these aren't helpful, feel free to modify it to whatever your needs are. Now we're going to turn to Kim and Lynn from Neighbor Impact to learn more about the work that Neighbor Impact is doing to help their clients build financial capability. Again, I've prepared a few questions for them, but please feel free to submit questions that you have for them via the chat box, and we'll be sure to ask those at the end of their presentation as well. So thank you again for joining us today, Kim and Lynn. So I just wanted to start off and hear a little bit about the services that Neighbor Impact is offering. Lynn, I think you guys are muted, so if you can unmute yourself, then, oh, are you there?
Can you guys hear us now?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
So this is Lynn. I'll just jump right in. Neighbor Impact provides really a continuum of services through about 16 major lines of business. We serve 3 very rural counties across Central Oregon, and each year we serve about 1 out of every 4 people who live in our service region. So our major lines of business include our food bank, which is what we're best known for, all sorts of emergency services, including energy assistance, rental assistance, as well as weatherization, lending, a small homeless shelter, early care and education, including Head Start and child care resources, and our Home Source department, which really includes a variety of asset building services. Some of those services include financial fitness education, one-on-one coaching, home ownership, a very robust IDA program, foreclosure, and reverse mortgage. Our Head Start program covers 2 counties through 8 different sites, and we serve about 451 families each year. Families must be under about 100 to 130% of federal poverty line.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. So you guys have been doing this integration work for a while, so could you share a bit about who your target clients are and what you've discovered their financial needs are through doing this integration work?
Absolutely. Our clients for this project was to focus on the Head Start parents. and we really wanted to learn about what their financial issues were. So our teacher advocates and Head Start advocates at conferences conducted a survey to see where it is that we wanted to focus. And we also had 2 focus groups with parents, one a group of our Policy Council parents, who is our governing body for Head Start, and then we also did another focus group at one of our Head Start locations here in Bend. And we found that our clients have a lot of debt, especially relative to the income that they make, and most of their debt came from rent or utilities or medical or credit card or car loans. And we also found it very interesting to learn that the median debt owed was $13,000. So almost all of our clients had poor credit and could use support on cleaning that up. And of course, all of our clients are low income because we serve the neediest of the needy within our community and seek them out so that we are meeting those needs of the requirements for the Head Start program. So it's really a challenge for them just to live day to day, let alone get caught up with their finances when they're on such a limited budget.
Absolutely, and I just want to sort of lift up the importance of the work that you guys did early on. I think it is so, I mean, even though it can take a long time, I think it's so critical to do those surveys and focus groups. And for folks on the call, you don't necessarily need to do as extensive surveys as they did, but I think just even making that effort, like you really do find out information you didn't know before, and I think it's wonderful that you guys did that. So,
absolutely, we really wanted to be sure that we were focusing what our parent trainings were on what the needs of our community was.
Absolutely, and that's just so critical in terms of developing a program or set of services that clients are actually really going to want to come to and participate in. So can you tell us about how you've integrated financial capability services into your program? And I know it's been sort of over 3 years, so talk about what happened at the different stages.
Sure. So we kind of started slow, and really I think it came from our top management seeing value in integrating our asset building services throughout the agency. So we were part of the CFPB pilot on the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit. That's what YMYG stands for. And that toolkit is designed to train social services staff with a very basic level of financial understanding so that people feel comfortable talking to their clients about finances. And it also helps develop a referral plan and other things that are extremely complementary to what we're talking about today. So we started with that, and that really got some of our Head Start advocates engaged. We had joint staff meetings with both departments, and as I mentioned already, the leadership was really on board in trying to figure out how to do this. The second year, Home Source staff, which is our asset building staff, conducted budget training at each of the Head Start sites for Family Night. Our goal was really to make it highly interactive, very non-threatening and engaging so that people recognize that this was not really as hard of a topic to talk about as, as it might be or as they might think it was. We also had our Head Start program integrated financial fitness into their 5-year grant plan. So we had accountability really on both sides to provide the service, and it aligned well. So this year is year 3. Home Source is providing community-wide financial fitness trainings for Head Start families. We're doing some financial counseling, individual, one-on-one. We're making referrals to free tax prep services. We're still really building knowledge through both programs, and we found that it takes a lot of repetition to make sure that people know, are able to associate Home Source with some of the services that we're providing. We've also really gone out of the box in our presentations, including we did a kind of wild skit at our holiday staff retreat by the Home Source team, which really, let's say, was very memorable to the Head Start staff and the rest of the agency, even though we all embarrassed ourselves thoroughly.
That sounds really cool, though. I mean, sometimes humor and theater are the best way to get new lessons across, I think.
Absolutely.
So what have been some of the benefits and challenges of integrating financial capability services?
So we found that finances are just a big stress on our families, and by helping them be more financially fit, it will help to support their school readiness and better parenting. As I stated earlier, we serve the neediest of families in Central Oregon and seek our families through our recruitment events. And they sometimes face barriers that prevent them from being able to attend those trainings. And I think just realizing that that's just a fact. And how can we help support them getting through some of those barriers, which may be transportation. Our buses will go pick them up. We might find a cab for them. We also have some company vehicles that we could maybe go pick them up at. But clearly, if they are, homeless and don't have somewhere to live, that's going to be a little bit more weighing on them than attending a training for parents. And also, we found out that by educating our staff so that they have more knowledge of the resources and what is available to them, it's really fresh in their minds because we just trained them to that, and so they're able to really connect the families to that through relationship building. We've really done a huge recruitment effort to get our families there by sending home flyers and giving a personal phone call prior to the event. We've given little incentives to where we will provide child care. We will feed the families and provide a meal because it's in the evening, and oftentimes they come after work, so we want to make sure that they don't have to stop and get food for the children before they come, and try to be inclusive and ask what it is that we can do to help them get to these events so that we can help them move along that path of school readiness.
Great. Thank you for sharing all of that. That was really wonderful to hear. So how have you guys used the tools from the guide? And we got a question from a participant that was curious to know when people are using Tool 8. So I was wondering, which is the client journey mapping activity. So I was wondering if you could also just, when you talk about the tools, say when in your process you decided to do Tool 8.
Yeah, so this guide has frankly been instrumental, I think, to our success. We, as I mentioned before, sort of we had a little bit of a foundation in year 1 and 2, and this guide really helped us solidify where we wanted to go moving forward. I think that the client workflow mapping tool was a huge part of that because I think both the Home Source department and the Head Start department have very different cultures in many ways. And so figuring out kind of what those between the lines items were that we needed to understand about each other's programs, and that's where the tools came in super, super helpful. Utilizing the outcomes tools really helped us refine what we wanted to provide. Workflow, intricacies, culture, all of those things kind of came out through using different tools. And it essentially just helped us work really well together. So we had ongoing check-ins as part of a CFED project that we're participating in, and that also helped a lot in terms of accountability and having set times on all of our calendars because you all know it's kind of crazy sometimes to just get through week to week and make time for what seems like maybe it's an additional activity like this. So having the accountability, having regular meetings, and having the workflow mapped out through the tools helped a ton.
Great, and thank you for sharing that. And just to sort of highlight, even organizations that aren't working with CFED but want to do integration, I think that idea of accountability and really setting aside time for these projects is important because they are really time intensive, as you all know, and just making that a priority and keeping some space that's really dedicated to that, I think, is really important. So we've got a couple minutes. Are there any questions for Kim and Lynn that folks would like to ask now? We also have a Q&A at the end, but we've got a couple minutes if folks have some questions for them.
Hey, Ariel, I actually got one that came in to me.
Great.
It reads, we find that families at or below 150% of the poverty level rarely can create a balanced budget. Do you focus on working with the family to get to the point of being able to meet their needs before you move forward with other aspects of the program, such as saving or credit repair?
So that's a great question, and that's also probably one of the hardest questions to answer because it's so dependent on the individual or the family. I think that they're really all tied to one another. Understanding, how credit scores are determined, what factors play into that, how to prioritize spending, what cash flow looks like, all of those things are very tied to one another. And so we've found that the greatest impact happens when people come in for one-on-one counseling with trained staff, because then we can really identify what somebody's long-term goals are or short-term goals and try to help direct them or, educate them in that direction. I do think absolutely that's an overwhelming question for a lot of folks. And so one of the pieces that we haven't talked about yet as part of our workflow is referrals to workforce development agencies and, talking about, okay, we're either cutting spending or we're increasing income. What's it going to be? And so that balance is very much, an individual or a family decision to make. It's certainly a hard thing to do, but just accruing debt because you can't figure out, what spending looks like isn't a help in the long run. I hope that answers it.
That was great. Are there any other questions right now for Kim or Lynn?
Just got another one in. Actually, it's not a question. Read it. There are not many families that deal with the same issue. I'm not really sure because this one is.
Maybe they're wondering how you sort of customize services, given that families probably have such a big range of issues.
So again, I think, it comes, we at Neighbor Impact are extremely fortunate to have highly trained staff, and we utilize those folks to do individual counseling with different families. So I don't know that there's kind of a silver bullet answer for that, but it very much is analyzing each family's both current situation and longer term goals to try to help figure out what the next steps are for them.
I think that's a lot of what Head Start does with their families in overall whole, is we accept them where they are and try to help move them forward with the rate that they want to move forward. So identifying within the family engagement framework as far as where they want to move with that goal, and then we kind of pick that up and see where we can connect them to help move them along that school readiness goal.
Absolutely. So if we don't have any more immediate questions, I'm going to move on, but still feel free to send those to Natalie or me, and we can ask them at the end. So we're going to now just move on to the final section of the guide, which is the cross-cutting section or the making the case section. So your work to integrate financial capability services, in doing that, you're going to need support from multiple stakeholders. These include people like your organization's board and executives, frontline staff, funders, community partners. The one tool in this section is the Key Stakeholder Support Tool, and it helps you think through each audience's priorities and perspectives, and it organizes the information that you'll need to persuade them to support your work. As the name implies, the work of the cross-cutting section takes place at every phase of planning, and stakeholder buy-in is important, at your first meeting all the way through to implementation, so you may want to use this tool multiple times. So the tool has two parts. The first part, you identify and describe all the stakeholders whose support you need, including their different perspectives. Stakeholders are not all the same, and their specific roles in supporting your program will vary, and so do the issues that they care about. So the arguments you make about why someone should support your work and what specifically you're asking them to do need to really be tailored to each audience. So in this tool, you'll write down what motivates a person, what potential objections they might have, and what arguments that stakeholder will find compelling. In the second part of the tool, you'll write a tailored pitch for each stakeholder. This is your case for support, and it builds on the information you've developed in the first part of the tool. It may also include information or decisions that you've made from previous tools. So the key components of your case will involve your problem, solution, and the call to action. The problem is the issue clients are facing now and why the stakeholders should care about it. The solution is your proposed integration project, and the call to action is the specific thing you need the stakeholder to do or provide. When you put these components together, it becomes a narrative, and it really becomes the pitch that you're making to the stakeholder of why they should support what you want to do. So I want to do another poll and just hear from you all. What section of the guide are you most interested in using first? And that could be section 1, section 2, section 3, the cross-cutting section, or all of them. And we've got about 30 seconds to respond to that poll.
Okay, the poll is now closed. Again, we'll need about 15 seconds for it to load, and we'll post the results on the screen for you guys.
Great. Okay, it looks like a lot of people are interested in doing section 2. I think that's a great place to start, like trying to figure out who are the people who are providing services in your community, what those services look like for your clients, would they be a good fit, and really sort of building that team for who and is going to be delivering these services. So I think that's a really exciting place to start. The next most popular is section 1. I think that's also a wonderful place to start. As Lynn and Kim were saying, really gathering that client data in the beginning is so helpful as you think about developing services. So thank you all for sharing those responses. And then finally, we've got one last poll. So I'm interested in hearing about what is your next step. So do you want to spend more time learning about the guide? Would you like to share ideas for how you could use the guide with your team? Do you just want to jump in and start using the tool? Or your next step could be, if you have more questions, you can email planningguide@cfed.org and get advice for how you could use the guide. So if you could just launch that next poll. We've got about 30 seconds for everyone to respond.
All right, thank you everyone for participating. We'll need about 15 seconds and we'll get it posted for you.
Great. So it looks like the two most popular things were start using the tools or share ideas for how we can use the guide with the team. I'm so excited to see that so many people just want to start using the tools. I think that's a great place to start, and people should just jump in. Always feel free to email CFED if you have questions and you're using the guide and you run into trouble. But I think they're pretty hands-on and easy to use, so I'm excited to see that a lot of people want to start with them. So we're just going to move on to the Q&A now, and we've got a couple minutes. You can ask questions of me or of the speakers. If folks have sent in questions that we haven't had a chance to answer yet, if you just want to read those out, Natalie, we can start going through those now.
Sure, we actually had a few that we didn't get a chance to address before. So this one is actually for Lynn. Do you focus on working with the family to get to the point of being able to meet their basic needs before you move forward with other aspects, such as saving or credit repair? I think we actually already did that one, so I apologize for that. Give me just a minute, and I'll pull up some other ones we got in. So here is one. Do you find that Head Start parents have enough income or supports to make a balanced budget? And this one, again, was for you, Lynn.
So I think we might have already answered this one also, but something that kind of came up from this question and the last one is, do we do credit counseling with folks who really can't figure out their spending plans yet? And I think the answer is yes, we do. We follow the client's lead on that. And something that has been extremely surprising to me working here is that clients who are in our rental program who are receiving emergency rental assistance, I thought, oh, no way would they want to learn about asset building at this point. They're really just trying to find where they're going to stay tonight. And interestingly, the case managers have let me know that nearly everybody asks, on that night where they're looking for housing tonight, how their credit score is going to affect things. They ask about questions along those lines. So I think that there's an interest deeper than what we might expect for clients, even those in crisis. And sometimes they're not quite ready to tackle the problem yet, but giving them the education so that when they are ready, they know where to come and who to talk to and how to access those resources, I think is of vital importance.
Great, thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions on our end, Ariel. If you see any, please feel free to jump in.
Let me see if there are any more on our end, on my end. So far, no more questions. I think we've gone through all. Were there any additional ones for Charlotte that we didn't get to when she was presenting? Okay, if there are no additional questions, then we're just going to move on to look at resources really quickly. So in addition to the guide, which we've been talking about today, we have a number of different practice briefs and guides that are available on CFED's website if you follow the link on the screen. And these include things like guides for creating logic models or developing easy-to-use data tracking systems. So there's a range of resources that you can connect to there. I've already mentioned the Assets and Opportunity Network, but I wanted to give another plug for it here. The Assets and Opportunity Network, again, is a movement-oriented group of advocates, practitioners, and policymakers working to expand the reach and deepen the impact of asset-based strategies. Network members are on the front lines of advocacy and coalition building, and the ANO Network regularly hosts webinars and other peer learning events. So if you want to connect to other organizations in your area or across the country that are doing this work, this is a great way to connect to people. Another resource is that the Assets and Opportunity Network does is their data center, specifically their scorecard. And this is a comprehensive look at Americans' financial security today and their opportunities to create a prosperous future. So what it does is it assesses 50 states and the District of Columbia on 130 outcome and policy measures, and it really describes how well residents are faring and what states could do to help them build and protect more assets. So if you're looking to sort of pull some data on your state or even on your county around how you're doing on these policy areas, this is a great website to use. I've seen a lot of people use it when they put together funding proposals. So it's definitely a resource that I would check out. Another one is the About Financial Capability Services resource, which you can find on ACF's website. The link is at the bottom of the screen, and this resource really provides an in-depth look at the 10 key financial capability services that we've touched on today. And I think it's really useful because for each of these services, they're really designed to address different aspects of financial capability, and some services may be a better fit for clients who are just starting to sort of think about their finances, whereas other services might be more appropriate to someone who's farther along in this process. And I think this resource really goes over sort of how you can assess which services might be a good fit for clients. And it also talks about the resources and investments at your organization that are needed to really implement these resources effectively. So I think it's a good one to look at if you're thinking about starting a new service. I also wanted to highlight the DOL Breeze series. This is a 5-part webcast series that's designed to promote and raise awareness of the benefits of integrating financial capability services into workforce development services and job training programs. I know someone earlier said that they were, I think, doing employment services, and if you're looking to sort of make the case around why integrating financial capability services might be useful, I think this is a good resource to check out. And then we also have, we've developed 5 short training videos that go sort of, they're a complement to the guide, and these videos provide instructions, tips, examples of using the guide and integrating financial capability services. The first video is an introduction to financial capability integration and to the guide, and then the 4 videos after that each cover a section of the guide, so you can watch all 5 videos from the link that is up on your screen right now. And then finally, I just wanted to thank everyone for being on the webinar today. If you have questions about the guide or questions for any of the speakers, you can email any of us. We're definitely willing to, respond to questions about how we've done this work or how CFPB does this work, and the speakers are all willing to answer questions. If you have specific ones that you want to touch base with them on offline to learn more about their process. I also want to note we're going to have a feedback poll at the end of this webinar, so it'd be great if you all could answer it, and just we'd love to hear sort of how we can improve these webinars and make them work better for the future. And then Tiffany, I know you had some additional things you wanted to chat about.
Hi, Ariel. It's actually Hyacinth, but we just wanted to take a brief moment to thank all of you so much for taking the time to present and go through your very interactive guide. And we also want to thank Charla and Lynn for taking the time to speak a little bit about their involvement with this guide and the success that they've found with it. In closing, we would like to just direct you guys to a few additional resources that are related to the topics that were discussed today. You can see that we have a link to these resources and tools, and we'd also like to note again that a copy of the slides and also a link to a video recording of this webinar will be shared with all attendees sometime tomorrow. But here we have a few resources that you guys can take a look at if you're interested in more information about financial capability. We would also like to recommend a few of our upcoming webinars that we have. The next one we have is Trauma-Informed Approaches. That will be presented in collaboration with ICF International, and that will be on May 11th at 2 p.m. We also have a Bundling Services Resource webinar, which will also be presented by ICF, which will be held on June 7th at 2 p.m. The last one that we have that we would like to direct your attention to will be our National Poverty Trend Session, which will be held on June 29th at 1 p.m. Finally, again, we would like to thank you for taking the time out to join us. We ask that you will take just a brief moment to fill out our survey to let us know how we did, and also maybe to recommend future topics or discussion points that you would be interested in. Here on this slide, you can see the contact information for the LCRC staff. Please feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns that you might have. And again, we would like to make a final plug for our conference in Austin, which will be held on August 30th through September 2nd. We will have a number of additional financial capability workshops at our conference. So we hope that you'll be able to join us, and this concludes our webinar for today. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.